College Place is a video library of noteworthy presentations, panel discussions, and lectures featuring guest speakers and faculty members, taped at one of the Milwaukee Area Technical College's 4 southeastern Wisconsin campuses. These are produced by students in the college's Associate's Degree Program in Television Video Production in coordination with Milwaukee Public Television.
MATC is privileged to welcome the South African Consul General, Vuyiswa Tulelo, to our downtown Milwaukee campus. When Consul General Tulelo and her staff were planning her visit here to Milwaukee, she specifically asked to have a chance to visit a college or university in this city and to share her message with college students. We're very honored. You do have a number of colleges and universities to choose from here in Milwaukee, and we're very honored that MATC was selected. And I want to give a special thank you to the City of Milwaukee Alderman and MATC graduate, Joe Davis, Sr. out here in the audience, for his role in helping bring Consul General Tulelo to MATC. Thank you, sir. Love to have graduates thinking about us. Consul General Tulelo's visit to Milwaukee coincides with the 19th anniversary of Freedom Day, which commemorates her country's first post-Apartheid elections. Freedom Day is obviously a significant and historical event in South Africa and, frankly, for the world. While many of us witnessed this transformative event from a distance, in fact, quite a distance, today we have the unique opportunity to hear about Freedom Day and that impact of that event on an entire nation and on a young woman from that country's North Cape province. Now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing South African Consul General Vuyiswa Tulelo.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As said, my name is Vuyiswa Tulelo. I will not hold it against you if you cannot pronounce it, but I think it will mean a few more visits for me so that we can spend more time together. This is my second visit to Milwaukee in the 9 months that I've been in the Midwest. And I think every time I come here, it becomes more and more exciting. But we will talk about that on my third visit. For today, we are here to talk about Freedom Day. And I was really thinking hard about what is it I would like to share with you about Freedom Day. And I know sometimes common knowledge is that South Africa was a divided society for many, many years, and we had apartheid as an institutionalized system to enforce separation between your blacks and the whites. But I think there's something a little bit more that doesn't always come out from that conversation, in the sense that not only was South Africa institutionalizing separation between blacks and whites as a political system, but even in the education front, it really ensured that your African majority are prepared to serve and not to own or lead corporations, and your white minority were prepared to lead. So an interesting scenario would be somebody from a historically white school who would not be very good with numbers would be made responsible to manage a bank. Now, you ask yourself, not good with numbers, manages a bank, how safe is my money in this institution? But that was the reality of South Africa. And most of the times, it was a reality that was not expressed in a way that a lot of people could understand. Because if you came to South Africa as a tourist in those days, you would probably be a white person, and you would be exposed to the white South Africa. And everything looked okay. Infrastructure, top of the range, amenities were there. You wouldn't be able to see this separation unless you were exposed to the reality of what the African black person had to go through in South Africa. I'm just giving you this by way of historical understanding of where South Africa comes from. And of course, you then had the period, the protracted period, where your liberation movements, and not only the ruling party, I'm talking about a conglomerate of liberation movements who were fighting the system of apartheid, went out into the international front to mobilize communities against apartheid. And that's where a lot of you would have become aware of the reality of what is happening in South Africa, because you would meet black people who would be explaining to you that they can't own land, they can't buy cars, they can't go to universities. And if they did go to universities, they were supposed to dumb themselves down because they couldn't get better grades as the white person in the university. And in the few occasions where universities were developed for black people, those universities were not preparing them to be entrepreneurs or to become leaders in the industry, but it was preparing them to become servants in the industry. And I know that, for instance, the United States alone had a huge anti-apartheid community activist, which was a community that really tried to make sure that South Africa's perspective is understood through the eyes of the African majority. Now, I've said a lot about the past of South Africa. What is it that South Africa is dealing with today? And I will tell you that I am accused of being very hyperactive and very animated, so I get easily attracted to things that are interesting. But I think my visit with the campus today just made me realize how far South Africa has gone. In the midst of you, there's a young woman who comes from South Africa, who is white. And she came to the United States as a nanny. But she chose to remain in the United States, and she's studying human resource development. Now, if that is not a tale for change, I don't know what would be a tale for change. Because in the first place, during the years of apartheid, there ain't no white woman who's going to be a nanny. What's wrong with you? You have to be nanny to the white woman herself. Now you want her to come here and babysit some other person's children. Not gonna happen. But it tells you that opportunities are becoming available to all young people across the spectrum. Because if she had to come into the United States to be a nanny, what is stopping another African young woman to be a nanny? Another example, and I know she's going to kill me for doing this. There's another young woman who's sitting in your midst, who hails from KwaZulu-Natal. She lives in Milwaukee, happens to be the wife of Alderman Davis, and she's black. How did that happen? Because there was no black young woman who was going to be able to leave the borders of South Africa, let alone to come find a husband in Milwaukee. How did that happen? And I'm trying to show you these two contrasts, that what would have automatically been the world of the white woman. Because during the years of apartheid, it would have been the white young woman who got on a flight on a fiancé visa to come get married in the United States. And it would have been the black young woman who got onto the flight, firstly as a fugitive from South Africa, but has to come and make a living as a nanny in Milwaukee. Today, 2013, what you have? Exact opposite of roles. If that does not signify a society in transition, a society in development, I don't know what does. So ladies and gentlemen, as you celebrate Freedom Day with us, I would like you to think about the countless opportunities that are available in your midst. In the same way that you helped us to fight and do away with the demon of apartheid, my task is to come out to you and say, yes, we are 19 years into democracy, but this is only 19 years of political democracy. We still need to go out and change the means of economic ownership in South Africa. And the only way we can successfully do that is if we come back to you, our friends, and say, As you went door to door asking for the business community to disinvest in South Africa, now it's your time to go back to them and say, it is time for you to reinvest in South Africa. As you went door to door, finding opportunities for those apartheid activists to come and study so that they can make better people and better leaders of South Africa. Now it's your opportunity to welcome those troves of young people in South Africa who are sitting there and are unable to access educational opportunities because they don't have the necessary means. And I'm not talking about black South Africans, I'm talking about young people across the spectrum. It is your opportunity to reach out and say, South African Consulate, we are here, we are your partner, we are your ally. We would like to see how we can make the dream of South Africa become a reality. Because without an empowered, enlightened, and educated youth, South Africa will be back to where it was 300 years ago in the next 30 years. Thank you so much. We're waiting for, yes, ma'am.
May I ask a question?
No, I think you have to wait for,
all right.
Yes.
I'm trying to
the
help
program director.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to present you with a little MATC souvenir of your visit here.
Thank you so much. Wow. Yes, I do. I try to speak as few words as possible to allow for questions.
We have time for a few questions. I think we have some microphones down here in front.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Milwaukee. For the students who are in the office, for the students who are in the audience, I would like for you to share a little bit about your personal story and how you got to be the Consul General at such a young age. Obviously, you accessed the opportunities that you had and took advantage of them, but can you just tell a little bit about them? Because often our students come from difficult backgrounds and they don't dream and they don't have the hope that they should have in the midst of all the educational opportunities that we have here. Certainly you come from a climate that it was oppressed and you didn't have it in your country. So I'd like for them to hear a little bit about what you did and how you got to where you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If I have to tell you my story, we'll have to spend another day here, but I promise not to be that long. My activism, because I always make the point for people to understand that I am not a diplomat, I am an activist. So I don't subscribe to these protocols and rules that diplomats get entangled with because I think they waste a lot of time and you get very little done. Having said that, my activism was reawakened at the time that I went into high school. So at the time that I went into high school, there was a system in South Africa that was called the exam fee. What it literally meant was that for you to write your grade 12, you had to pay a certain fee. Failure to pay that fee meant you would not be allowed to write that exam, and therefore you would not be able to get a graduation or a certification that proves that you've completed your grade 12 and allow you access into any further studying opportunities. Now, I thought that was ridiculous. You spend 12 years at school, and at the time where you're supposed to advance that learning, you have to pay a fee for it. I mean, you have been paying for all these 12 years. Shouldn't that cover at least that basic? But that's what got me involved in youth activism. But as I got involved fighting this monster of examination fee, I got exposed to a reality that the injustice was not only around education, but it was an injustice that cut across society. Things like my mother could not own a piece of land. She couldn't own any property independently. She always had to be dependent on my father. So if my father wanted to become a lunatic and live in one village and go and get another wife in another village, it means my mother would be stranded. But the law did not recognize my mother as a woman, as a human being. And I thought to myself, but if I'm going to have to grow up to be dependent on some man's surname, then there's a problem somewhere. So I better try to change this society before I have to deal with the issues of a man somewhere. And that's how I got aware of the politics of gender oppression. And that when you are in the South African context, when you speak about oppression, you have to be very specific about it, because there was the oppression of the black people in general, but the women had to suffer what we called triple oppression, because they were oppressed firstly because of their race, secondly because of their class, and thirdly because of their gender. So the woman had to carry so much more of the brunt of apartheid. And my aim was to liberate the South African woman from that bondage, that she must be able to interact with any other person as an equal. And I'm hoping that at least I exemplify the feasibility and possibility of the woman being able to engage in an open space as an equal partner. Because I've always done things to prove that what a man can do, a woman can do 10 times better. And that has been the driving force for me. And I think that I grew in the youth movement, and I went to study at Wits University, and I continued in student politics. But my home has always been the ANC. So the bulk of my time I spent in the youth movement of the ANC. And I was then elected as Secretary General of the ANC Youth League, which was predominantly a male position. And when a young woman came and became Secretary General, not only did I have to change the nuances of how my own organization did business, but it was a ray of hope for young women out there that you can do it. And the reason why I accepted the assignment to become head of mission at the young age, because I wanted to prove two things. Being young doesn't mean you are irresponsible, and being a woman doesn't mean you are incapable. So I'm hoping that as I'm setting this trend, I'm making it easier for those who will follow in my footsteps to be able to do that. And I think with the opportunities that are available for the young people in America, you cannot blame your past for what is happening in your life all the time. The fact that your great-great-grandparents came as slaves, excuse me, you are not a slave. You are a free and equal citizen of the United States, and you better make use of those opportunities. You can't become a drug addict and blame it on your great-great-grandparents who were slaves. Where were you when they got on the boat? You were not even born. So what's your excuse for being a drug addict? And that's the point I always make out to young people, that your past influences your future, but it definitely doesn't determine who or what you become.
Greetings. Thank you so much for that inspirational talk. I have a question for you. So, what are some ways you think that young people can reinvest, as you talked about, in South Africa, and then also reinvest in their community here?
Thank you so much. For me, there are two things. If you do not know where you come from, trust me, you will get lost. Your compass is disorientated. And your community is the base of understanding of where you come from. And I always say that when we rise up the echelons of power, we can never rise out of our community. We have to rise with our communities. You can't claim that you are a success story when people go to your community, half of the young people are drug addicts, the other half are killing each other, the other half don't know what to do with themselves. So you start with little steps. You don't have to have $1 million to reinvest. If you've a graduate of a certain high school in your community, there is nothing stopping you from developing a mentorship program between yourself and the few other friends that you have who are successful, that you spend time with those who are currently in that system. When you have made it and you have the privilege and fortune of having some resources available, there is nothing that is stopping you from resourcing those schools that you come from. I came from a school where having a computer would have been a miracle. Just having a computer. You speak about computers, they look at you and say, what are you talking about? The school that I matriculated from, if you go there today, they have a computer lab. And those kids are no longer interested just in the hard body of the computer. They want internet access because they want to Skype, they want to tweet, they want to WhatsApp, they want to do all kinds of things. So my challenge is no longer asking for computers. My challenge is to say, how do we get internet connectivity available to my community? So as I go out and engage different communities, I want to find those scientists who know how to add 1 and 1 together and make the wavelength longer, and say to them, you actually know I come from a small community called Kimberley there. How do we extend this broadband to that community? In my age, having your own textbook would have been a privilege. The ratio was 1:5. For every one textbook that was available in the school, it had to be shared by 5 students. Today, those students don't even have textbooks because they have to download them from the internet. Now, what is it? That is a reality that happens in some part of South Africa. But the other reality is that we still have rural communities who do not have access to these amenities. You guys have got these books that you buy every month, every week, and you don't know what to do with them. Wouldn't it be worthwhile if your school adopted a school in South Africa and said, at the end of every year of class, whatever grade, we will ship our material to this school, to South Africa, to help them to be able to develop themselves? Wouldn't it be worth your while if those who finish their academic course at MATC would say, we will find a technically inclined college in South Africa and adopt them and share with them our resources? Because at this point in time, you are in a process of developing knowledge. But later in years, you will be the owners of knowledge. You will be the masters of the economy. You are then able to say, with the relationships that we have started, we can do A, B, C, D to empower our communities. Because for me, the magic is not to grow out of your community, is to grow with your community.
Hi, I just had a few quick questions. I have 3 questions, just to be specific. So you did mention reinvesting in the community. Wait, this mic? Okay. You did mention reinvesting in the community. So I just wanted to ask, what was it like working for the National Youth Commissions in South Africa?
Sorry?
What was it like working for the National Youth Commissions in South Africa?
I see somebody has been doing some Googling. It was a very challenging time because you must remember we're doing a trial and error thing. The National Youth Commission didn't have any implementation powers. It was a lobby and advocacy body. So the best we could do was to come up with youth development policies that we will give over to government departments to implement. But the shortcoming of that process was that you couldn't call out government departments or even private sector when they're not implementing those policies. And I think realizing that, that's what gave birth to the National Youth Development Agency, because we wanted a youth institution that will not only develop policy, but that will have implementation power. But I must say it was a very exciting period in my life because at all times, we had to ensure that both private and public sector speak about youth development. So it was literally chasing the developments in the country. When there's a new policy coming out on health and substance abuse, you had to make sure that there's a youth specific on that. When there's a new policy coming out on arts and culture, you had to make sure that there's a youth specific and that. And I think it's something that we did successfully to put in place the policy infrastructure. The challenge that we have now is for the implementation of those policies to be able to change the lives of the young people in South Africa.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question was, does your name have any meaning associated with it?
Yes, it does. It means happiness, as you can see.
Okay. And then my very last question would be, are there any specific activities that we could do here on campus for Freedom Day?
Sorry?
I said, are there any specific activities that are done in South Africa that we could possibly do here on our campus for Freedom Day?
Absolutely. I mean, dialogues can be something that you continue to do. But as you are on Twitter also, it would be very useful to set up online chat communities with South African young people who are on campus so that they are able to share with you the current reality of campus life. I mean, the last time that I was in a campus was about 8 years ago, and a lot of changes has taken place since then. And you can be able to make those communities. But it's also important always to do a comparative study, to understand what South Africa went through, where it is today, compare it with your own situation today in the United States, and see how is it that you can avoid some of the challenges that we are going through. Because I think the beauty of an interconnected world is that you don't have to make the same mistakes that I make. I make the mistakes for you to learn from them. You make the mistakes from me to learn from them. So there's a variety of ways. If you have people who are from Africa, this is your opportunity to learn about African cultures. In celebrating Freedom Day, ask them what does it mean to do this, to do that, why do they do things in a certain way, and engulf yourself in being an African for this period, but make sure that it never takes from you your own identity, because you learn from others' cultures to enrich your own identity, but it never has to change who you are and what you are about.
All right, thank you.
Good morning. CJ, I just wanted you to maybe highlight as well the Youth Day, since the young men.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. I will be coming back in June to celebrate South African Youth Day. And Ms. Magugu Davis is helping us coordinate that. And I think the celebration of Youth Day, it recognizes the contribution of South African youth to the freedom and the liberation of South Africa. But I think our conversation this year is going to be more on these opportunities that we're trying to find, that young people had to give up their life and they had to give up some of their own development in pursuit of the freedom of the country. And this is an opportunity for us to be able to celebrate those, but also see how, the question that the gentleman was asking, what can we do to celebrate South African Freedom Day? It would be a way to take that communication further to say, as we focus, because the Youth Day is celebrated within the context of the Freedom Day of the 19 years of democracy. So I think if anybody has got any ideas, any interest, please get in touch with Ms. Magugu Davis, and we'll see you then on the 16th of June. 19th, oh, sorry, they say it's the 19th.
I'm from Liberia. My name is Quita. And what you said about having your own rights with being a woman, to be independent on your own, has for me, in America, I live by myself and I am from Africa. And basically, how did you do it? Because I know from back home, it was very hard for us to get money and stuff. How did you do it? Did your family help? Did your mama and papa help? Did you do it on your own to come and stuff? I would just like to know that.
My mama and papa thought I was a crazy child. They thought I needed to be put in some institution for mental disease. But I think for me the magic was that identifying a cause and sticking to that cause. Because when I started out, my parents thought it was a phase. Here is a 12-year-old running around with older people who are talking about the fight against apartheid. She doesn't even know what apartheid is. So in 3 weeks' time, she will be over it and she will be doing things that regular 12-year-olds do. But once they realized that there's something wrong with this 12-year-old, she is sticking to the cause. They were able to come and say, how do we support her? And I don't come from a wealthy family. So the support that they gave was not necessarily in giving me money, but was in understanding when I had to travel to lead, because in South Africa, like maybe in the United States, when you are under 18 years, you need permission for everything from your parents. To get on a flight, your parents must sign consent that she can get on a flight. To get on a bus, they need to sign. So that's how they were able to help me to do the things that I needed to do. But I think that as I grew in my areas of responsibility, they were able also to support me, not only as parents, but with my mother as woman to woman, to share her own experiences with me so that I don't have to go through the same things. My father to tell me that, dear, beware that not every man who says he loves you really does it. He might have other plans in his mind, and be careful of things like that. And that's how I was able to be sustained. And I think I'm also fortunate that I come from a very close-knit family, because my parents and my siblings, we are very in close contact. But it was an odd experience, because a lot of mothers didn't want me to be friends with their daughters because they thought that I'm bad influence. Can't go with that one, wrong for you. And a lot of mothers didn't think that I was the perfect girl to be dated by their boys, because I'm too bossy and I want to tell the guy where, so I can't get married to their sons. So it's still a social dialogue that still continues. My mother-in-law still thinks from time to time that there's something wrong with me. You know, she asked her son, were you sure that you wanted to get married to this one? But it's a conversation that is an ongoing conversation. What you need to do, find the cause, stick to it. And once you are true to yourself, those who are around you are easily converted to what your cause is.
So you are independent girl, and you made it through life with your parents and others people help, right?
Yes, I did.
And you made it very far, so that's good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. And assalamu alaikum, Sister Rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum, Sister. My name is Hanife Thomas, and I am the president for the international organization here. And I'm also a representative of student government. Being a leader is not easy. I would like to hear some encouraging words from you, and I have a big question for you. I want to know what kind of challenges you had to go through and face it as being a woman and as being a Muslim woman, especially on that one. Being a leader is not easy. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you something about me that a lot of people do not know. I am a Mormon. Now, can anybody imagine that? I'm black, I'm from South Africa, and a Mormon. There must be something horribly wrong with me. I also think that from time to time. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is that when you enter into the space of leadership as a woman, the first thing that you have to recognize is that you have to work 50 times more than everybody. Because in my religion, the typical role of a young woman, go to school until you get 18 years, find a worthy priesthood holder to get married to, have 100 babies. Now, obviously I'm not doing that. I have 2 children, and I did not get married to the first. No, I didn't get married at 18 years. I was a bit rebellious at 18 years. I did get married at 21, which many people still think is a bit too early in life. But at least I think that at that point I had decided what I want to do with my life, you know. But it then also meant, because I was a married woman, I was on campus, I had to prove to the young men, because the prevailing notion of how the patriarchal society operates is that once you are a woman who enters into the space of leadership, if they cannot contest your ideological capacity, they want to convert you into a sex object. So you always have to ward off the advances of people who think you are the new best thing. And once they realize that I couldn't be bothered to becoming their sexual object, they then go to ridiculing how you look. And sometimes it takes some sacrifice on your part. I had to literally become a tomboy be seen in jeans, tekkies, and big t-shirts all the time, because I needed to fit into the mold so that I can become one of the guys and my ideas can be accepted by the guys. But I think that at least in the time that I've gone through the youth movement in my country, young women today don't need to become tomboys. They can still show up in the ANC Youth League meeting with their makeup, with their stilettos, and their pink handbags, and still make a valid contribution. The important thing that we need to learn is, I don't believe in this pull head down syndrome. I don't necessarily subscribe to the notion that where women are together, they necessarily fight all the time. I think women are the best supporters of each other. But I think we also give a lot of opportunity to the men folk to dictate our agenda. Where we are weakest as women is that we will organize ourselves, support ourselves, and we will look to the men for direction. I think it's about time now that we determine the direction ourselves and get into a conversation with the men folk and say, this is what we want to do. So it will not be easy, sister, especially because you are a Muslim woman, because they want to see, are you true to your faith? Do you really believe in what you say you believe? So every time there's a student activity, somebody will come back with a glass of wine and offer you and say, just for today, it will not do you a lot of harm, you know. And if you can make that mistake of just once, taking that glass of wine, your integrity is gone forever. So if you say no, you have to have a consistent effort of reminding yourself that no is my answer. If you want to take the glass of wine, take it with an understanding that every time you speak, you will never be able to rise up and say, as a Muslim, you will have to find another way to introduce yourself. You know. But if you're going to have your religion as an integral part of your identity, living your religion will have to be exemplified and emulated in your leadership style. So people will have to know that on Friday, we can't have meetings because you're going to church. Now, for others, on Friday is the day to chill and do all manner of things. But you have to drill it down their head in the same way that I had to drill it down their heads that actually I don't shop on Sunday. So you can do all things you want to do, but don't expect me to go shopping with you on a Sunday. It is difficult because Sunday is a convenient day for other people. We are always in meetings from Monday to Saturday. I have to take the extra effort of making sure that I either wake up earlier one Monday to go and get my shopping done, or I do without what I don't have. And because I was true to my principles, I don't have to explain to my colleagues anymore that I'm a Mormon. They are the first ones to tell whoever doesn't know me, she's a Mormon, she doesn't take coffee, you know, because I was true to what I believed in, and that was coming through all the things that I did in my leadership style. And that's what is important, to stay true to your conviction and to live them. Don't just say them, but have to live them every day.
Hi, thank you for coming. I've got a question. I am just beginning to get interested in activism, social activism myself, and one thing I'm noticing is that the young people in American culture are very self-absorbed. It's really hard to get people involved in what I'm interested in, and I'm still finding my focus, but I'm already seeing that it would just be very hard to get people to notice what's going on and get consistently involved in social activities. I was wondering if you had any advice for me or for anyone who's interested in social activism, how to get around that, how to get around all this. There's just so much going on, so much music and internet and things to buy, and that's all people are interested in, and we're really not a community here. We really don't rise up with our own communities. We rise up alone, and if you had advice for that.
For me, I think that's the demon of capitalism. That is the shortfall of the system of capitalism, where the promotion is about self and self only. But I think the one reality that we have to accept is that it is human nature that you respond to things that make sense to you. My activism was awakened because I didn't want to pay a matric fee. Now, if there was no matric fee, I cannot guarantee to you that I would have been where I am, because I might have taken a completely different course of development. But the important thing is to find that one thing. The mistake that we try to do is to save the world doing 1,000 things at a time. And I don't think that works. You need to find that one thing that drives you, the one thing that when you wake up in the morning, you know that if I go and do this, by the time I go back to bed, even if I have not had anything to eat, even if I have burnt my skin in the sun, but I have a smile on your face. The minute you find that thing, trust me, it will be so easy to attract those who have the same interest. The minute you are able to identify that your cause is about sexual abuse, if you are going to fight around sexual abuse, it is so easy to find people who have the similar passion, who have the similar objectives as you are. But if your cause is going to be sexual abuse, LGBT rights, education, and you don't look focused, you don't look coordinated, so people think you are just busy playing. They can't follow you. Find that one cause, stay on that cause, and it will be amazing how you find how it extends to other things. You may think it's about sexual abuse only, but only to find that it extends into issues of police and justice system, it extends into issues of employment equity, it extends into issues of cultural dynamics, but you have to first find the cause, stay with it, and then from there you'll be able to broaden it.
Please join me in thanking Consul General Tulelo.